All right. It is 5:31. I will call this meeting to order. Do a roll call, please.
Mayor Rockdale, Mayor Pro Tem Perry,
Here.
Councilmember Caffey,
Here.
Councilmember Walker,
Here.
Councilmember Oliveris, here, Councilmember Starnes,
Here.
Councilmember Melton.
Here.
All right. Would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I stay standing? I believe Chief Metter's going to give us an invocation, please.
Good evening. Tonight's invocation is titled Community Matters. It's a reading from the book of Ecclesiastes 4, 9, and 10. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. But if one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But if someone who falls alone is in real trouble. That rings real true to me for an incident, a medical incident happened to me earlier last week, in which if I didn't have the help of family and loved ones, I wouldn't be standing here today, for sure. So this is very true to me, and I appreciate them very much. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody signed up? We have one person that signed up for an item that was on the agenda. Who signed this paper? I can't read that.
Is that me?
Is that yours? You gotta write bigger than that, man. I can't even see it with this. So, I assume you wanna wait for the agenda item? All right. So, we will get started with a presentation for HUD Section 3, presentation for TXC DBG D23 0449 grant.
Did you say that again?
All right, and I can make this fairly quick if you'd like. So this is just a grant, this is a portion of the grant that we have to do, and this is just stating that we will hire and track any type of Section 3 work, or at least to promote it. The city received a $500,000 grant for the East Cameron lift station. Sorry, I have two lift stations, one's Crockett and one's Cameron, so I had to remember which one y'all were. The majority of all of this tracking will be done through us. We are Langford Community Management Services. We were hired to do all the grant administration for this, so this is keeping y'all in compliance with TDA. Everything Section 3 is MBE, SBE, low to moderate income. We promote it. It's not a requirement. The requirement is just the promotion of that. So we make sure and we promote it in all advertisements. Y'all just pretty much, we give you a sample and it's already in there, so y'all don't have to worry about it. At the end of the grant, we will have all of the Section 3 requirements in a form. We have all of the documents sent over to the city, so y'all will have that. Y'all have a grant box and a grant download where y'all can see all of the work and all the documentation that we have as far as keeping you in compliance with the state. And that is about it. That's my short version. If y'all want the longer one, I can read these one by one.
I'm fine with the short version. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about anything associated with that grant management?
No.
And so you wrap all this up and
I put
give
in
it
a
back
pretty
to the
bow and give
city?
it to y'all, yes.
Okay. And that sounds easy enough on our part then.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
If
I
you're
could do it.
happy and we've satisfied the things that we're supposed to do, then I'm happy.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time, and y'all have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. I am going to read a proclamation for Black History Month. During Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development, and the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals, and grasping the need to promote and recognize the accomplishments from the African American populace. Dr. Carter Woodson, an African American historian, educator, author, and former black teacher in the Fayette County, West Virginia school system, did establish Black History Week in 1926 to highlight and to appreciate such history, and this observance provide an invaluable opportunity for all of us to deepen our understanding of the struggles, triumphs, and cultural diversity, and the City of Rockdale continues to work toward becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens, past, present, and future, are respected and recognized for their contributions and potential contributions to the community and the state, the county, and the world. And the City of Rockdale is proud to honor the history and contributions of African Americans in our community throughout our state and nation. I, Lynn Perry, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Rockdale, have the distinct honor of proclaiming February 2025 as Black History Month. So, it is an honor. I think somehow I got to do this last year. Still not the mayor, and I've got to do this twice. So, it's a very important piece of what goes on in our city, and I hope that Rockdale I think by leaps and bounds I've seen differences over the years, and I hope that it continues to be that way, and I hope that I don't have a shaded view of that and that it's truly happening the way I see that it is, and it continues to grow. So,
Mayor Pro Tem, quick announcement. We're going to be hosting a fourth East Side Conversation. The subject is Rockdale Black History.
Okay.
And that is going to be held on the evening of Friday, February 28th at 7 p.m. The site is to be determined. The moderator for that discussion will be Lisa Benford Roberts.
And that was Friday, what?
February 28th, the last day of Black History
Last
Month.
Friday of the month. All right. And once you get that nailed down on a location, you'll share that? And
Yes, sir.
we can put it out? Perfect. All right. Moving on. Let me get my stuff together here. That's not the right one.
What time is it?
Here we go.
7 p.m.
Next is on the consent agenda. We are going to remove item 7 to be placed in the regular meeting, and number 10. So everything in the consent agenda except for number 7 and number 10. All items in the consent agenda are listed as considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the normal sequence on the agenda. Information concerning consent agenda items is available for public review. So with, bless you, number 7 and 10 being pulled out, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to discuss or possibly move out of consent agenda?
I would. The police department report, I just wanted to. It's not? Okay, I'm told that it's not a part of the consent agenda anymore, so.
The,
Police department report.
is that the regular report or the,
It's available it's available for comment and discussion if council would like to do that, as it stands.
okay? Is there if that's not part of the consent agenda and you have an item, or something in particular you'd like to talk about, council member, is now the proper time to do that, Tim?
It's at the pleasure of the council.
Go ahead,
I just would
Dave?
like, feel like we've all talked about this before. It's just, again, a recognition that if you look at the stats, and I appreciate that we have, I think Sergeant Goodrich took this back, but from 2022 to 2024, we have a 77% increase in tickets, activity, citations, arrests, whatever. I know we were taking steps, we've increased the budget and all that kind of stuff. I just think that it's important that we all take note of that, because 77% in a 2-year period is substantial.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Anybody else have anything in regards to that? All right, anybody want to make a motion on acceptance of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
I second.
And that's with items 7 and 10 removed.
Yes.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Let's see. So we will, before going into regular agenda items, we will now place item 7 out of the consent agenda into the regular agenda, and I need to call a public hearing for the regarding conditional use permit request. So a public hearing at 5:42. Is there anybody that would like to speak on behalf of anything associated with a conditional use permit request?
I'm here to answer any questions. I'm with JM Civil Engineering, representing Murphy USA, so if the council or Mayor Pro Tem has any questions.
Do you have anything on that, Tim?
Yeah, so the conditional use permit is for the Murphy gas station, located over there near Walmart. They are undergoing a complete renovation of that, at that location. And because of that, they will be issued a new certificate of occupancy upon its completion. And because it is a gas station, it will require a a conditional use permit approved by council.
And
That's why
so,
that's before you tonight.
and so outside of this public hearing, will we, once it becomes an agenda item, take action on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else in the public hearing piece of that? All right, well, 2 minutes later, we will close that public hearing and move on. The, item 10,
This is
that was,
Item number 7 still needs action.
okay, you want to do them both? Okay. All right, number 7 will be now number 7A, will be consider and take any necessary action on a recommendation from planning and zoning regarding a conditional use permit requested submitted by Christopher Strickland on behalf of JM Civil Engineering for the property located at 715 West US Highway 79, Rockdale, Texas, for gasoline sales. Mr. Blanchard, you're up.
So Mr. Kelty explained it really well. This is more of a housekeeping item. The footprint's going to remain relatively the same. There's going to be a slight increase in impervious coverage percentage and a couple new pumps. The big change is going to be the store. Instead of it being an outdoor and you wait in line outdoors, you can actually go inside and make your purchases of candy bars and drinks. But since they need a new certificate of occupancy, they're required to get a CUP from council by ordinance. And so upon your approval, they can move forward with their permit request.
So they'll, once we do this, then they'll still go through the full regimen of submitting plans and for approval and
Right.
permits and all that good stuff?
Mhm.
And so that's following. Gotcha. Okay. Any, the recommendation from the planning and zoning was to accept this. So unless somebody has anything to offer and a reason not to, I make a motion.
I'm gonna abstain from voting on this.
I'll make a motion that we approve line item 7 as read.
I will second that.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor and one abstaining. All in favor? Motion carries 5 with one abstaining. All right, do we want to hit number 10 next, Tim? Okay. Item 10 was in the consent agenda. It is pulled out for a typographical error in there. It is for the appointment of John Lawhon to the Parks, is it Parks?
Yes.
Parks Board. We've got, accidentally, we signed Robert Lawhon up for that, not John Lawhon, and Robert's here to contest that.
Yeah, I was already congratulating
Yeah.
He was like, it's not me, it's my brother.
John did appear before the Parks Board, and they did vote to go ahead and recommend his appointment. He was not able to be here tonight because he's working the
And Buster Spaghetti.
dinner, the band boosters. And I think he sent John to represent him, or sent Robert in his place to represent.
So maybe we'll suck them both into a board for you know it. So, that is the only reason item 10 was moved from the consent agenda to the regular meeting, so that that correction could be made in public. So, I need a
I'll make a motion that
motion.
we appoint John Lawhon to the Parks Board.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. If you would, text him and tell him he got voted out.
You are on the board. You are on the board, aren't you? I thought you got on the board. Okay, all right.
We got plenty to
We'll get
sign
you
up
one.
for.
Tell him thank you very much.
All right, regular meeting, back to the regular agenda. Item 11, consider and take any necessary action on a resolution amending the 2024-2025 annual budget.
So this budget amendment, there's couple of things. The first part is that it cleans up the Post Oak Savannah grant funding for the 2024-2025 budget year. Basically budgeting the revenue that we've received this year from Post Oak Savannah, and also funding the project that was awarded last year that has not yet been, the remaining portion that hasn't been completed this year. And then the second part of the budget amendment is a request from the MDD, and Mr. Gibson is here to address them. The changes that they are proposing to make, basically, well, he can go through them if he.
Well, I'll keep this quick, and I don't have it in front of me, but basically there's some cleanup amendments. I have this tendency of under budgeting interest income. You just never know what's going to happen. But interest income has done pretty well the last couple of years. There's also been some projects that the board has approved that after we did the budget, so they weren't included in the budget. There were also a couple of projects that were budgeted last year that were just pulling ahead into this year. So it's really some stuff that's just housekeeping.
And is this something that happens, I know it happens time to time on the city side. How often do you all, what do your bylaws say you have to clean this up once a year for the MDD side, or what's the practice that should be expected?
Usually it's, we do one towards the end of the year, but we have a couple of projects that we've undertaken, such as the water well rebuild contribution. There's also the grant for the sidewalk and for the sewer lift station that I thought we were going to spend that money last year, but that's coming across this year. Yeah, we'll do one at the end of the year to clean things up. It's just that we do have some projects that are coming up and I wanted to go ahead and clean the budget up.
In addition, the MDD also agreed to help fund well number 8 a portion of that to upsize it, or is it 11? 11, excuse me. To upsize that from a 6 to an 8,
Okay.
or 4 to 6.
All right.
Upsize that well.
Anybody have anything on item number 11? Questions, concerns, thoughts? All right.
I'll make a motion that we amend the 2024-2025 budget for line item 11.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 12, consider and take any necessary action on the recommendation to the city manager regarding a request submitted by Time and Lachlan, funding from the Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund for the Sunkiss Music Festival. And Mr. Lachlan, you are up if you'd like to speak, or we'll ask you some questions, or whatever.
I mean, do y'all just want to recap or any updates?
I would like to, at the last meeting, I had some concern over, what the expectation was for stays versus hotel rooms, and I want that to be clarified for you and every other, person that comes in looking for hotel, motel, what that expectation
Yes, sir. So, after we had talked, it was just rooms, and, right, not people, it was just rooms there.
Correct.
So then I went and adjusted it to 25 for the course of Thursday through Sunday, for people to potentially stay. And that was pretty much the new information.
So we went over the new policies that were adopted by council,
pass it on.
and he revised his application, in accordance with that. Basically, in regard to that, you know, he is proposing, he's estimating that 2,000 people will attend the event, and it will result in 50 overnight hotel stays, 25 each night, which are hotel rooms. So, 25 hotel rooms each night that he would fill.
Okay.
The way I'm reading it, on his application, it says 25 rooms for 2 nights, so it's 50 stays, and then on the recommendation, it says 50 stays. So it's 50,
It's
correct?
25 stays each night, correct? Yeah, that's why,
Friday and Saturday, not Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
as a
Sorry.
result of this.
I do have some of my out-of-state people that are going to be staying Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, that are band members that are performing. So that's why I said Thursday. But for the attendees, Friday, Saturday night.
And if there are, 30 one night and 20 the other night, I'm looking at it from a total standpoint. Or even if if it extends into 3 nights as a result of the event, it would be looking at the total number of hotel stays for the event.
You're
So
looking at 50.
50, it says
Yeah.
50, so that's why
So,
I'm just circling back, it's 50,
if he
right?
has people for Thursday night, not knowing what Friday night and Saturday night might bring, he should grab those credits
Yes.
to work towards the 50. And is it council's sole discretion if Time and Lachlan does everything right and it's a monsoon for a week, during this event, do we have the ability to still fund him?
I would be
if
coming
we-
back to council
Okay,
with that request.
so we don't have to hold him hostage if they've
I,
done everything.
I would hold him hostage. Without your consent, I would hold him hostage. I would bring it back to you guys to get consent to be able to pay for him, because circumstances beyond his control.
We won't let that happen.
All right.
Can I go home?
Any other discussion, thoughts? That answers my question, clarifies, what I had from last month. Anybody else have anything? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What month is this, monsoon coming?
April. Hopefully not.
Before it freezes again.
All right.
The event is,
April 25th
April
and
25th
6th.
and 26th.
Somebody want to entertain a motion? It's number 12.
The recommendation is for $5,000, and that would be paid only after the fact, if in fact he is able to provide the certifications for the hotel stays, and the documentation of the expenses where he has targeted, audiences outside of a 50-mile radius.
Understood?
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation from the city manager regarding the request from Time and Laughlin for funding from the Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund for the Sunkissed Music Festival.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Item 13, consider and take any necessary action on the second reading of an ordinance for a rezone request for property located at 915 San Gabriel to change the zoning from M1 zoning classification to R3 PUD zoning classification. Mr. Blanchard.
I would just interrupt, so, item number 13 and 14 are basically the same. If you're so inclined, you could adopt both of them in one motion.
Okay. Let me read 14 in case we want to do that, in case anybody gets it squirrely. Consider and take any necessary, item 14 is consider and take any necessary action on the second reading of an ordinance for the rezone request for property located the 900 block of San Gabriel, property ID 205308333, to change the zoning from C1 zoning classification to R3 PUD zoning classification. So same exact with two different addresses, same adjoining property though.
Yes, so this will be the same development for the housing authority. And so last time that you saw this, they were requesting in their line items to not install curb and gutter and to only have one parking space, as well as other items. Those were the only two that staff and the planning commission had concerns with. And so the question for council is if those items are okay, because staff would recommend to require the required parking and required curb and gutter installation. I know in speaking with Mario, there's concerns of funding, so they're requesting to work with you on some type of ratio if you want to do a 1.25 requirement for parking, or however you would like to see that.
And Plan Commission recommendation was based on the inclusion of curb and gutter installation.
And so is that part of the zoning change, or would that be when they brought a plat together for what they're wanting to do? When would we make that part of the requirement?
It would be now, and the reason is this planned unit development setting an ordinance specifically for that property. And so those requirements, currently zoning code requires 2 parking spots for their use per unit. And so when you set this, they will then come in their plat and site plan, and they will have that standard of what's required for their zoning.
So is that the only thing in, because all we've seen at this point is conceptual, what they would like to do with the property. If we change this tonight and they change that up, do we have another shot at saying, wait a minute, time out, we're not okay with this? How does that work?
So with this zoning ordinance that you established tonight, it sets the standard. And so their plans would have to meet that standard. If they do not meet that standard, then they would go through another zone change request, because this zoning ordinance is setting that standard.
Or a variance.
So
Could they do a variance on that?
Variances are not supposed to be self-created. And so that would be a self-created hardship. So it should not be.
So we need to be specific tonight, if we're accepting the 1-to-1 ratio, or if we need to change that ratio, and if curb and gutter are part of our requirement.
That's right.
Well, I'll put my 2 cents in, and then y'all can discuss however you want. I think curb and gutter is a must. It's a maintenance thing forever and ever if you don't have it. And then I don't think 1 is realistic. I would lean more towards 1.5, but I could also get on board with something less, but 1 is not an option for me. So, Doug, did planning and zoning have a recommendation for a percentage? Or is it?
Well, Ben can tell you that they tried to convince us that they had peripheral parking, but in the usage of this, there's limited mobility and what have you, but our discussion was if one resident has a vehicle and they have somebody coming to attend to them, that's 2 parking spots.
Right.
And we were leaning towards 1.5. But because they did have that additional parking,
The only problem is the additional parking is not defined right now.
yeah,
It is conceptual at this point, so if it was approved with just 1, then they could legally come back with just 1, and there wouldn't be anything the city could do about it. So I think it is important for the council to make that designation at this point.
The side parking you're talking about, is that the one on the road when they're going in on the right? The housing's on the left, correct? Is the one that goes along the road? Is that what you were talking about, Doug?
well, see, that's the problem with us also. It was all conceptual. There was an architect involved, but there's no, it was as clear as mud to us.
I mean, the conceptual plan actually shows 2 parking places per unit. But they've said, no, they're not gonna do that, or they don't intend to do that. But they were doing 1-to-1, but they would have some extra parking in some of the side areas.
Yeah, they would.
Basically, I was trying not to go to parking on the grass. I'll
Yeah,
sit down.
they would have parking. I think the other item they says they'd have some at the community center, but again, I mean, for that type of units and the care that's going to be required, that's proposed from that grant, you can assume that there's going to be nurses that will have to be on site. It's going to be more than just the tenants parking there, and so that was the planning commission's concerns. They didn't fall on a number. It was discussed of 1.25 or 1.5. Some wanted 2, but the housing authority has taken a strong stance against 2 for funding.
You know, we have a huge parking problem everywhere.
Already.
And for us to not acknowledge that and try to head this off, we wouldn't be doing anybody any justice in the long run. I get to vote, right? Yeah.
Once again, so is the spots, are they counting the ones on the road? Remember is that part of that?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Like I say, if you count up the spots on this conceptual plan, it is two parking places, but that's not their intent.
I think it would be smart to go with 1.5, and even if they have to drop some units to get that 1.5 in there, it will be a much more usable space in the long run, than
You're gonna have cars parked.
cramming units in there and shorting the parking.
Is 1.5 even enough? That's my concern.
Ben, did you have a footage? Did you calculate parking spots?
Well, no, I mean, when we counted the conceptual plan, staff hasn't received any really official submittal on what the building is going to look like. It's all been conceptual, and so we haven't seen any plating either. So this is,
So they have 76 units planned for this development.
I can't remember, are these 2 bedrooms or these 1?
1 bedroom
And studio.
and a studio.
One or-
But on here it says
one
72
bedroom?
units.
They're 1 bedroom, but in that case, if you have an elderly individual or.
I wish we had a history of like other units like this, what's the number of cars generally that people have? They have 1 or 2 or none?
Yeah, I mean, they could, if it's an elder, and I think if they end up going with a 55 and older, like I said at the last meeting, my wife and I could live there and we both have a car.
And then you need 2 spots.
And we would need 2 spots. But if we didn't, certainly I would hope my kids would come to visit me. Or if we get to the point where we needed a home health care.
Do we know what the ratio is out at Cordova?
I don't know, but if you're looking at raw numbers, the 1.5 would yield 114 spaces course, the two would give you 152. Is that right? Yeah, 152 versus 114. The current standard is two, right?
Current standard is 2. I went to Cordoba, and it looks like they would be closer to the 2 range than 1.25.
I don't wanna tie their hands, but, I'm in for, I've talked myself out of 1.25, I'm at 1.5.
I feel the same way. I like this project, and I'd hate to be the one to say that we need 1.5 and then not be able to find the money for it, but I think we have to.
You're looking at 95 if you go, 95 if you're going 1.25.
114 if you go 1.5.
I'd like to go with 1.5.
If they are able to get the number of units in there that, like I said, it's all conceptual at this point.
Right. Yeah, they still haven't been awarded the grant, so that's going to be their first and foremost. Then after that, they'll have to go through the design and engineering process.
They were seeking two different grants, two different routes, right, Ben?
Yeah, so one grant, the big grant, would be for 65 and older. The lesser grant that they were seeking was gonna be for 55 and older. So if they got the bigger grant, they would have to only allow people 65 and older live there.
If I heard the news right today, I think all that's being frozen right now.
I don't know.
In the current government right now, but
Some grants are, some grants are not.
good.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? So we are gonna consider whatever motion, or if it lacks,
Does it allow us to do 12 and 13? I mean 13 and 14?
we're gonna do 13 and 14 together, yes, sir.
But you gotta stipulate it.
I think staff would recommend 1.5.
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item 13 and 14, subject to requiring curb and gutter installation and 1.5 parking spaces per unit.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0 for 13 and 14, please, ma'am.
There's the second item is just like that, so if you wanna repeat that motion for the second one,
15?
14.
14.
I thought we just did them together.
13 and 14. in
Oh,
each
you did
month.
13 and 14?
You did them together.
Oh, cool, thank you.
All right, item 15, consider and take any necessary action on the second reading of an ordinance for a rezone request for property located at 815 Houston to change the zoning from A zoning classification to M1 zoning classification. Mr. Blanchard, you're up again.
So this is the second reading. Nothing has changed since you saw it last time. There were questions, so that's why we pulled it out of consent to be a regular agenda item, because there was questions on improving the street, if the family was made aware, and then what the process would be after the zone change request, to which to remind council, it's in a previously platted area that has a lot of undeveloped right-of-way and alleyways within it. So if this were approved, they're going to come back to you to request you to abandon those portions of rights-of-way. They will then purchase it, plat it, and then they can move forward with a building permit upon this approval.
And this basically, there's a lot of land out there that's undeveloped. This basically allows for a development right kind of smack in the middle of that larger area.
If I could perhaps pick this up, I don't know what the motion would be, and I have to recuse myself from the vote, but I don't think you need to consider this anymore because the couple involved who is going to put a manufactured home on the property has been given enough advice. They're closing on a house in another location in the next couple of weeks. So this plan to me is irrelevant, or I don't know if that's the best word, but their plan is not to move forward with a manufactured home on this site.
Would we just table this?
I would, if they're going to move forward, they haven't officially told staff that to recuse the application, and so I would move forward with some type of action, whether approving or disapproving that, then they can move forward again if they want to pick this back up. I would not table it. I would not recommend that.
So if we do something with this, and they, I don't know if they own that property or buying it, but if somebody else was to pick up this project, these rules follow.
They would still have this, so if what Councilman Melton is saying, I would recommend not approving it because of the fact that then you don't know what the next person might be doing.
Right.
Or want to do, so.
That was my concern.
We were kind of making an exception for the citizen as well. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we do not approve agenda item 15 as read.
I second that motion.
You're recusing yourself?
Yes, sir.
Manning? All right, any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5 with 1 abstaining. Item 16, consider and take any necessary action on an agreement with the Rockdale Chamber of Commerce for annual hotel occupancy tax funding in support of the Chamber and Visitor Center.
So for the last several years, the city has budgeted and paid the chamber $30,000 for tourism activities that they undertake. And it was a little bit more last year because of the sesquicentennial activities. But they are eligible to receive this funding because of the activities that they do. What I am proposing is actually to do this under a contract. I've done this before, to fund chambers in this way. And so what I am asking is council consider the proposed approval of the proposed agreement in your packet. It does a couple of things. It requires that they submit quarterly financial reports, an annual report, and report to the council on the tourism type activities that they do undertake throughout the year on an annual basis.
And nobody showed up tonight.
I'm sorry?
Nobody showed up?
And Jim
there you
is
go.
here
All right.
on behalf of the chamber tonight.
Got lucky on that.
Brad,
And I have been talking to them about that.
he ain't pulling. You don't show up, you ain't getting nothing.
Well, I have a few things to say about this. And nothing towards you directly, Jim, but recently in this past year, I've been underwhelmed with the amount of activities that have been held and just the relationship that we've had, I feel like, between the city and the chamber, along with different organizations that have had struggles and challenges with the chamber. And for that reason, I really don't agree at this point that we need to just automatically give the chamber $30,000 when me personally, my humble opinion, I don't feel like they've proven to show us much this past year. So I don't agree with the annual, we're gonna give you $30,000.
I want to ask a question. Do you know when Roxanne would know the answer to this, but when did it become 30,000? Because when I got on the council, it was 10,000, and then all of a sudden it started jumping, and I'm trying to figure out
I know when I looked
how
at
those jumps.
I know in the last, I think 3 years, it's been 30,000, but this last year was a little bit more than that.
They needed a roof, I remember one year.
So we gave money for a roof.
That was on top of the 30 though.
Like 54,000, we get.
I think it was like 70 or
It
something.
was on the building out, the garage, but still.
But the most expensive roof money could buy.
I will say, I know that Mayor Rodham and I have been started meeting with them on a quarterly basis. We do have another meeting coming up. And I know that Victoria has talked about wanting to shift the service level that the chamber provides to be more in line with what the expectations of chambers do provide to their members, and work in collaboration with the city in that regard.
Jim, we're not beating up on you, don't.
Yeah, don't take it
This is
personal,
in
but
fact a 2-year
it's
agreement.
not a
Well,
secret that the citizens
before-
and businesses are not happy
yeah.
with the chamber.
So this is one of those times where I really kind of need to watch my words, because the former director was a lady that we all liked and all that, and she hasn't been there for about a little almost a year now. But we're definitely trying to rebuild the chamber, rebuild the organization. We have a new strategic plan that we've been working on. Don't know if that made it in the packet for this time or not, but we can certainly present that to y'all next time. But yeah, we're trying to rebuild that organization. Our new director is getting out there and meeting with the different the different businesses. I will tell you that there was one local business that we felt, well, really two, but one in particular that was like, that bridge is burned and it is never going to be rebuilt. And they just became a chamber member because Lucida did a lot to reach out and try to mend that fence. We are working on it. It's taking an organization, to your point, did very little, sat in the office, didn't get out, and we're trying to change that.
Yeah, I voiced that in last year's, and from a personal note, we had a boutique for 2 or 3 years. Nobody ever came in. They sent emails for money, memberships, and then we've been open over here 5 years, and somebody came one time, and I don't know when, but and I could be like, if they came, I just wasn't aware of it. I know, and so I know that prior they were great on emails asking for money, but not going out and seeing people. So that was just my view.
Well, I think it was the turkey giveaway. Someone tried to show up to pick up a turkey, and Lucida wasn't there because she's out visiting businesses. Yeah, the old director, she was always more concerned about staying put in case somebody stopped by that she didn't get out. But that's at least where we are on that.
And I
One of the
appreciate you
things,
taking ownership
this
of
agreement
that.
actually is a 2-year agreement. You know, I guess if there was concern, you know, we revise it to be 1 year, and see if that change does in fact happen.
Well, I do have to say that I do agree with what Esme is saying, and I think before I agree to something like this, I would like to revisit something that was discussed in executive session in regards to real property. I can't say much more probably.
Tim,
Go ahead.
can you explain again why you're wanting to put this on under a contract?
You know, we have, we give out hot funds as in regard to a grant for event funding, which this is not an event funding contract. Generally, otherwise, the city will use its hot funds internally for those activities that qualifies. Because of the fact that this is going outside the city, or outside of the city organization to fund another organization, I like to have everything under a contract written. You'll see that in the next item as well. And so that the expectations are spelled out, you know, and are clear, what we expect as a result of the funding.
Understood.
So if we did it this way, we wouldn't have to visit again next year, because it would just roll over and
It would just roll over.
30, and then we would visit.
It would have to be revisited 2 years from now. Unless you approve it with just a 1-year contract, then it would have to be, then we could revisit it again next year.
But it still comes out of hot funds, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Would we be able to review that contract prior to, would the council be able to review it?
So, yeah, so this contract that we're proposing is in your packet.
Okay, that's what I was making sure.
And then this also requires that they prepare a report annually and present it, I think, at the end of July, and come and make a physical presentation to council as well.
Back at some point, there was one of the reasonings for needing this funding to help offset cost of the train depot.
That is
And
the
that was
other
part of
visitor
the-
center
part
that's
of-
not associated with the chamber.
That is separate. We would be looking at a separate contract for the depot, if we wanted to use hot funds to fund that.
Okay, at one time, it was the
Doug,
weekend visitor center associated with the chamber, but it's not anymore.
That is correct. Separate agreement, like Mr. Kelty said.
But that's not in this month. That's coming at a later
The
time.
depot has not come to the city yet to request hot funds yet.
So there's no tie between the chamber and the depot at this point, as far as,
That's correct.
okay.
Hopefully there will be collaboration, but there's no contractual connection between the two, just like there wouldn't be between the city and the ISD.
So do we need to take action on this tonight, or can we wait till budget season? Because they've already got their money for,
No, well, this is included in the budget that was approved for this fiscal year. They have not yet received their money under this budget. So when we approved the budget, there were funding that was allocated for this, in the budget.
I think, we may need to consider, I don't know exactly what Councilmember Walker's talking about, but I think there's merit that we need to at least consider something that was talked about in executive session before we move
Let me
forward.
ask this from other cities you've been with.
Okay.
Are most of the funds from Chambers, do they generate their own just through memberships or, different levels of memberships and, or do they usually get it from city as well?
It's a little bit of both. This in Center, where I came from recently, it was both. The city, made contributions to the chamber for different events and whatever, but that chamber they did have a very large festival that was the main fundraiser for the chamber. There was a number of other little events that they would have throughout the year that would also raise money. So it's a mixture of both. But then when I was in Jefferson, they gave a lot of money to the chamber to run tourism.
Gotcha.
so I have a question. Being on the chamber board, are chambers kind of taking a back seat due to technology these days, or?
Oh, taking a back seat to.
Because when you would come into Rockdale, you would visit the chamber. They would direct you to local businesses to go to. But now, I mean, you can pull up your phone and Google a restaurant or Yelp a restaurant or.
The visitor
So-
center aspect of that, definitely.
Yeah.
The idea of the visitor center has diminished significantly in cities because of that technology. But
Okay.
chambers generally will utilize technologies to help promote and market the communities for tourism activities. So that when you are looking for something to do, the chamber is one of the locations that you might look to, their website, or their membership
Directory.
So.
Well, if it's okay with everyone else, I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and table this until the council's able to meet with potentially the chamber board, maybe
Okay.
if we need to in executive session, so we could discuss things further.
Okay.
Got a motion to table?
I'll second.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second to table this until some further discussion. Any other discussion tonight?
I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was it 1 year, maybe a couple years ago, that they wouldn't show us their budget? Was the chamber that they wouldn't? Jim, do you remember? Well, we had simply requested just to see the budget and I think.
It was
I
around.
remember something vaguely
around the
about that.
time When they were asking for the
roof money.
money to do the roof.
They were very secretive on.
Right, they did bring forward, the proposals to substantiate what they were doing with that specific money, but I would say they were a little less than forthcoming at that point.
And that's my take. I think,
Not a lot of.
Well, again, that's prior leadership. Yeah.
Understand?
We're a little burned.
and my whole thing, and
Do
I
I?
think
We're a little burned.
I think everybody, I'll just speak for myself, but just like to see more transparency in all this. And I appreciate all the work that you've done in helping us get there. So,
I would also like to add that hopefully in that conversation, we can revisit that real property
Right.
that was discussed in executive session.
Absolutely. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of tabling, item number 16? Raise your right hand. Motion carries. We will table that until next month.
Still like it, Jim.
Thank you, Jen. It's not your fault.
We're gonna tell them they nailed it till you got up.
Jim, drop the ball.
We had 90,000 for them till you got up. Consider and take any necessary action on approving a lease agreement with KRXT for antenna space for the city public safety communication equipment. Mr. Kelty.
So a few years ago, the city entered into a verbal agreement with the prior owner of KRXT Charlie
McGregor.
for the radio station for the placement of public safety equipment, both for the police and fire station, police and fire department, on the radio station's antenna. And that included a generator that the city purchased, and that's located in a sub-building, on that property as well. So the new station, the station is now under new ownership. The current owner and staff are requesting a written contract covering the lease of the space, ensure the long-term viability of the arrangement and the expectations from both parties. One of the differences, I think the previous verbal agreement was for $1,200 a month,
Year.
$1,200 a year. And what he's proposing us now is basically $500 a month for $2,400 a year for the lease for that, but he's offering $2,400 in marketing and airtime on the station to promote city events and activities at no additional cost to the city. So it ends up being a wash.
Okay, so instead of us paying them 2,400, we get airtime?
We would pay him $2,400 a year, and then
Get the
he would,
airtime, okay,
he would
gotcha. Just make sure, okay.
donate $2,400 in marketing and airtime
How is that quantified?
Airtime?
at their billable rate.
So many times a day and
Is that in the agreement, probably that's signed?
broke out.
I'm sorry?
Is it all broke out in the contract, how many spots that is? or-
In the contract, it talks
didn't go
about
through
the
the
fact that
contract,
they
I
would
apologize.
provide that in value. As far as the value of that,
The swimming pool.
I guess it doesn't say at their current billable rate, or at their current rate that they charge. They can charge us $2,400 for an hour.
Oh, yeah.
But you
No
know,
bonus.
I'd rather them specify hours than, you know,
I agree, but at the same time, we're getting something
or little to
for
nothing.
little to nothing to begin with.
I agree.
My question to, I guess would be to Chief is, we've been talking about a lot of new radios, new frequencies, repeaters, blah, 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 blah. Is there anything else that's gonna have to go up out there that you're aware of? Because if there is, I wanna make sure that they're aware of it now, not after we sign this and then we say, oh, by the way, we need to put something else up there, and they say, oh, well, by the way.
Extra $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as my knowledge right now, no. The plan going forward with all new equipment would go on a different tower at a different location.
Okay.
And so, no, we would like to maintain our current equipment at that tower. My desire would be to leave it there and leave the equipment in place that we have now. So when we do go to a new radio system, we also have a backup system that we know works.
And
But
who's,
no new equipment to go on the tower.
okay, and whose emergency generator is that out there that powers that tower? Is that cities? Okay. And just so I understand what we're getting in horse trading here, this sort, when that generator kicks on, do they benefit from that, tower kicking on with our generator as well?
they still use that tower. Now, the generator actually used to powers the building too, which they're not occupying any longer. So their benefit has reduced since they've relocated to Taylor.
They still broadcast from that tower, and so
Right.
if the tower went out, the generator would allow them to continue broadcasting from that tower. Without it, they would be dead air.
So it's a win for them too. Absolutely. Okay.
Definitely a win for us, in my opinion, because we say no, and they say get off our tower,
All right.
now we're without communications.
Sure.
How,
on the tower, so. And
how
it's
long is the lease agreement
a lot of
for?
money to move that equipment.
What's the term of it?
5 years.
5
Now,
years?
the term is for 5
And we can
years,
do it at
and it
three.
can be renewed for 3 consecutive terms at the discretion of the city.
Can it be renewed at the same rate?
So you mean to have a renewal piece of the contract?
Leasee shall have the option to renew and extend the primary term of this lease for 3 consecutive periods of 5 years each. Each option period shall be deemed exercised by the leasee unless the leasee notifies the leaser in writing not less than 180 days prior to the expiration of the term or the expiration of the renewal period thereof. Mrs. Attorney? Does that would that lock the rate in or the terms of the agreement in? Or can they require a different, a tripling of the rate, so to speak?
That language does not appear to allow a change in rate. It just sets a term, and now that doesn't mean that they can't, the 180 days beforehand, say, well, we wouldn't mind renewing this and allowing this to continue, but we're gonna, charge X, Y, Z.
I guess, is the rate a primary term of the contract?
It is presently,
Okay.
but, it's
So they
term
actually
rate.
could notify us 180 days prior to the expiration of the date of the term that they don't want to renew. They would they would send us a notice. Is that correct?
They could.
Has this been before, have they looked at this point?
Yes, I did send it, they have reviewed it.
And they're
good with
as far as we know, they're good with it?
I'm gonna ask a silly question, because I'm not a technician.
I have one right
We're all
after you,
talking
too.
about it. Can it not go on a water tower? Or does it have, does it just need to be on a structure, or does it have to use their frequency?
So we removed it from the water tower to the radio tower, because when I first took over, we couldn't get it, I'm not sure if anybody was on council then, but, we couldn't get out even in our in-car radios in town,
Okay,
because reception was so bad, we could be line of sight from our antenna on our
Okay.
car to the radio tower and still couldn't get it, to the water towers.
okay.
And it was something to do with equipment was aging and the shape of the tower was deflecting a signal. And so Motorola recommended, you got a radio tower, get on that and your problems are solved. And we did, and our problems were solved.
Okay, fair enough.
And then if the new equipment's going somewhere else, how long do you think we'll need this backup equipment? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, forever?
There's other issues that come along with this radio change that I just discovered today. That I would rather discuss with you all in an executive session if we could. It's not something I wanna, for public safety reasons, I don't wanna put that out in the public.
Yeah.
Anyway. But ideally, I would like to have a backup system always. That would be nice.
Okay.
Because if we go down on this system, we have no communication other than cell phone. And we experienced that during the big storm that we had, the big ice storm, when we lost power at the radio station. And that housed our repeater and all police communications died. And so we're operating off the fire department's communications at that time, it was on the water tower still. And having to have the sheriff's department dispatch us by telephone. And so that was bad. That's when the city bought the generator and entered a verbal agreement. Hey, we're gonna keep you up and running, we'll supply the generator. And we did, and we haven't gone down since.
I believe the fire department has since moved their,
They moved theirs back to the water tower, I believe.
also.
Water tower?
They moved it from the water tower onto that.
Well, I think they moved back. I may
Uh,
be
the-
wrong about that.
the
They
chief-
did move to the
yeah,
radio
the-
tower and then I think they moved back.
Well, the chief called me and said that their equipment's on this antenna as well.
What water tower is it?
Okay, maybe
On the antenna that we're talking about.
Yeah.
He said, the Chief Matu said that they have
Moving it back.
communications equipment up there as well.
But did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did. Thank you.
Anything else? Y'all know the drill.
I'll make a motion that we accept, the item is read,
17.
Item 17, I can read it. The term proposed, the lease agreement is 5 years and is renewable at the city's discretion for 3 additional years, the cost of $2,400 a year.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Is it on this, Doug? Okay. Any other discussion on this line item? All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.
Before we go to executive, do you have something?
Yeah,
Before you go into executive session, I was gonna say, the departmental reports are in your packet if you have any questions about that.
saw that, and Mr. Williams has been raising his hand politely back there. So I gave him 1 minute.
All right.
Exactly.
I wanted y'all to complete your business at hand, but back on consent item number 9, it dealt with us, and I just wanted to show you the candidate that you voted for. He's in attendance here tonight. I just thought it'd be proper, since he waited to the end of the meeting, to be introduced to you. Bud, stand up. We lost Lost one, we gained one, so this is Bud Houston.
That's a much better introduction I was gonna give you.
Well, thanks for stepping
I was gonna say we lost one and picked up the order.
But thanks for jumping in.
Thank you, Doug.
Really,
Yeah,
really
we
appreciate
appreciate
it.
you.
All right, there is a,
Real quick.
oh, go ahead.
I know everybody was aware of the Super Bowl last night, and most people may be aware that there was a local kid that was on the Philadelphia Eagles with Raven Clark. That's pretty exciting. Rockdale now has a high school graduate that is a Super Bowl champion. I think that's pretty good.
Give it up for that guy. Can you sing the Fly Eagle song now?
I'm back as a grand marshal for a parade.
Get on it.
Hey, there we go. Now you're talking.
He comes back, he's pretty involved when he does come down.
Very good.
Are his parents still here? Family still here?
I think
I
mom.
think his mom's in Dallas now. I think she's in Dallas now. That's what I was told.
Probably doesn't live in the
Something
city.
I was supposed to read going to executive session, but I don't know where it is. So, the council will now convene into executive session at 6:37 to discuss real property
Pursuant to.
pursuant to,
You ready? There you go.
551-072,
where is it?
Top of that page.
pursuant to section 551-072 of the Texas Government Code.
551.0, you forgot the point, 072 of the Texas Government Code. Executive session at 7:39 with no action needed out of executive session.
Give me a mirror.
This meeting is adjourned.